An album from their late 80s run into the early 90s. It's LA Guns from their Vicious Circle release with A Long Time Dead. A album, I guess you would say they kind of stepped up the pace on it. It wasn't quite the sleazy hair metal stuff that they did in the 80s. It was kind of more straight ahead rock.
My favorite album they ever did, my favorite song they ever did.
Yeah, very, very cool tune.
Yep.
All right. Well, Chris, you know that we live in this politically correct society where, there's no longer a separation between, guys being guys, girls being girls. Now we have to mix everybody in with each other now.
Right, of course.
Everybody's equal. Everybody can do the same thing. There's no, there's no separation between the sexes. Everything melds into one. Mm-hmm. Well, knowing that and knowing what political climate that we live in, it always surprises me that there's still somebody in a position of prominence that's willing to step outside of those lines and possibly take a gamble with their career, their livelihood, just by the words that they speak.
Okay.
I'm talking about a story that I shared with you earlier this week. When I read this, I was just like, holy shit. Does this guy not understand what the political climate that we live in today?
Right.
Now, you could go one of two ways with this. You could say, I admire that guy for stepping up and saying what he says, or you could say, holy shit, dude, are you crazy?
Right.
All right. What I'm talking about is basketball.
Okay.
An NBA coach reportedly said, you can't have a hot woman coaching in the NBA because guys will be trying to fuck her every day.
Fired, so fired.
Well, we'll see what happens here. Many want to get a woman, namely Spurs assistant Becky Hammon, hired as an NBA head coach. Now, again, why?
Beats me.
See, this is. Does this prove something? Is this like a crown or a jewel in the crown, or what's the deal? See, we broke through the bastion of men.
Yeah, we've broken the barrier, man.
You guys aren't exclusive anymore. We're going to inject a woman into something that's traditionally a male thing.
That's right.
I don't understand what that's all about. Is it a power thing? Is it an influential thing? What is it that people are trying to accomplish with this kind of whatever? It's just, it's men are men, women are women. We're built differently. We think differently. It's like, why do women want to infiltrate a guy's thing?
Beats because they want to be equal. Women want to believe that they're going to be perceived as an equal, and it's just not the case.
It'll never be the case.
Certainly in certain industries, it never will. And I'll give you an example that you probably will not get, but some of our listeners will get. As is no secret, I am a fan of the WWE, of the wrestling.
Right.
And I watch it all the time. Well, in the last 4 months or so, I guess it is, they released the wrestler known as Booker T from the broadcast. They have like a broadcast team for both SmackDown and Raw.
Yeah, they're the play-by-play guys.
Right, exactly. And there's 3 of them.
Okay.
They got rid of Booker T, which was a good move because Booker T was half a tard. He was terrible. He just was stupid. But they replaced him with this chick named Renee Young.
All right.
She's a hot chick. She definitely looks good. And she speaks well. And she knows wrestling, and she's married or fucking one of the wrestlers, and and I say that not only as just a goof, but because they do use it in the storyline. obviously it's all fake, and they play it into whenever her husband Dean Ambrose does something crazy, they always go to her and say, well, what's going on with him? And then she always goes, well, he doesn't tell me everything. That's the line that they take.
Okay.
But since she has been on doing the play-by-play, she's bringing that chick vibe to the wrestling.
All right.
That wrestling is a straight up heterosexual male dominated audience, primarily. I'm not going to say exclusively, but primarily.
Yeah, I would say you're probably correct.
Well, they've been trying for years to integrate, now with the PG era, they're trying to integrate more toward kids, and they're building up the women's wrestling and all that stuff.
Well, I thought that they had a whole women's wrestling thing way back in the 80s. Was it the Women of Glow?
Oh yeah, but that was not as good as WWE is the pinnacle.
Well, I get it, but my point is that they did establish a women's wrestling thing, right?
Yeah. And like every other women's sport, no one watched it.
Right.
Yeah, that's the thing. But here's the thing with Renee Young. I want to stick specifically to this one instance.
Okay.
Where everything was always about the fight and bring it and, what wrestling is. Now she's in there with her, oh, that's so mean. And that's terrible. And how could he say such a thing? And it makes it fucking awful to watch, because it's not a guy thing anymore. And the reason that that I was always into wrestling was because it was a straight up guy thing.
Right, of course.
I watch the NBA. I'm an NBA sort of fan, not a huge fan, but a sort of fan. Whenever they start with the female broadcaster on there, I'm done.
Okay.
As much as I've been to probably 100 NBA games in my life. I used to go to the Cavs all the fucking time. And I'll be honest, I've never once watched more than 30 seconds of a WNBA game. Ever. I've never watched more than 30 seconds of a college basketball, women's basketball game. The only time I ever watched it in high school is if I was fucking somebody that was on the court. That's the only fucking time ever. We don't care. Guys don't care about women in their sports, and they don't want them in their sport. And I'm just being honest. When ESPN has this year has been trying to ram this one female announcer, and I don't know her name. Somebody in the chat room, I'm sure, will tell me. But down people's throats for the Monday Night Football. Not every game, but there's been a couple of games where they've had this lady doing the call, and then Rex Ryan doing the color commentary.
Okay.
You can't watch more. You have to either turn the sound down and play music, or just fucking turn it off. Because she's terrible. Because it just doesn't fit, and she knows football. I'm not trying to say she's unknowledgeable. I'm not trying to say that she's not making the correct calls. It's just not what we're used to or what we want. We want it to be a guy-dominated thing. That's what led us to watching it in the first fucking place. Because we all played it against each other, and now we all want to watch it. We want to watch the guy-dominated fucking sport. Football to us, wrestling to us as heterosexual men, is basically the equivalent of the programming in our man cave. And I know it's disgusting that you have to have one little tiny room out of your whole entire house relegated to where you can actually act like a man. But that is what it is. And for them to start integrating all this fucking softer approach shit to it is like, fuck you and fuck your goddamn diversity and fuck your women's everything. Every single bit of it. Fuck off. That's all.
All right. Well, you might be a little bit young to remember this. I remember this back in the 70s, of all things.
Okay.
The first, at least what I remember to be the first woman sports commentator on the NFL. Was that what was her name? Phyllis Day George?
She's black chick, right?
No. She was a blonde lady.
Who was the black chick that was on CBS?
Well, I think that was more in the 80s. But this was the 70s. Look her up. Phyllis, I think her name was Phyllis Day George.
Let's see, Phyllis. Phyllis George.
I think she was like a Miss America or something.
She looks familiar. Yeah, Miss America 71, Miss Texas 1970.
Yeah, so they tried to integrate her into pregame analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Even way back then.
How'd that work out for him?
Not well. I mean,
right.
but she was a pretty face to look at.
Right.
So people were not tuning in to hear her commentary. They just wanted to check her out.
Right. Yeah. Dude, it's brutal when they do the little sideline token give to the women on the, coming in and out of the halves. That's, to me, if I was a chick, I'd be like, just don't do that. I mean, they have the chick and they come out after halftime and she's like, yeah, I caught up with Coach Belichick and he said that we're ready. Back to you, Bill.
Yeah. Well, one of the first ones, or one of the most notable ones, of course, was Susie Kolber.
Oh yeah.
She was one of the first sideline reporter girls.
I just want to kiss you.
And then they tried to move her more into like the mainstream commentary stuff.
Yeah, she's the main host now. She took over for Boomer.
Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah, she's it now.
All right.
And they made her grow her hair out. She's quite fuckable these days.
I know. She's a cute gal. I mean, she's like almost 50 if she's not already. But she still looks pretty damn good.
Yeah, she looks pretty good.
Pennsylvania girl.
No kidding. Did not know that.
Yeah, she's from Philadelphia, I believe.
She is, let's see, how old is Susie Kolber? Susie Kolber is 54. Sure.
Yeah, she's my age.
Oh, way too old for you. Maybe she has a younger daughter.
Yeah, she's still a very, very good looking woman.
Yeah, she looks good. She looks a lot better with her hair grown out.
I agree with that completely.
Guess we're not supposed to say that anymore because you're not supposed to notice physical appearance.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm attracted to attractive girls. Sorry.
Yeah, I like women with long hair.
Yeah, I do too.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's what I like.
Yep.
I'm not going to apologize for something I like.
Yeah, of course not.
All right. Getting back to the story.
Mm-hmm.
They want this Spurs assistant, Becky Hammon, to be hired as an NBA coach.
Good.
That's the wrong goal. And instead, the focus should be on removing the barriers that have nothing to do with coaching. Women, racial minorities, and gay people have a harder time advancing and coaching because of those identities. They don't have a hard time advancing and coaching. They just don't want them in male-dominated sports, not in coaching. You could go coach the women's, what is it called?
WNBA.
Yeah, WNBA. You could go coach there. I bet you could be a head coach over there. But see, because the male-dominated sports, as you pointed out, are the most popular of sports, they want to get in on that.
Yeah, but they won't remain the most popular sports if you fucking ruin them.
Well, I'm going to agree with you there. The reason they're popular is because they are male-dominated sports.
Yeah.
Now, if you infiltrate that with outside influences, then that interest is going to wane, and it's no longer going to be that interesting.
Yeah, exactly. If you're gonna put, see, I would have no problem with having women commentators, and in fact having women players if they can fucking play.
Right.
If they can do it better than the dudes, then go ahead and do it. Go right ahead and do it. You put a woman out there that can fucking coach an NBA team to a 65-17 record or whatever that would equal out to. Put her ass out there. Put her on my team. Put her on the Cavs. I'm all for it. But you know what? It's never been proven. Because and as this article I'm almost certain is going to prove, the guys aren't going to play hard for her. They're going to want to stick their dick in her instead of sticking the ball in the hole. That's just the way it is. They're going to be distracted. They're not going to be focused. You can try to say everything is level all you want, but it's not. Guys are always going to want to fuck women. Always.
Well, here's the other one. And this, again, goes back to having to make it, an issue with people. In that last sentence I read, it says, women, racial minorities, and gay people have a harder time. Why do we need to know what your sexual proclivity is if you're a coach?
Yeah, shouldn't matter.
Why do we need to know that? Well, he's the first gay coach, so what? Can you do the job?
Yeah, can you?
We don't need to know if you suck a dick.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we need to know that? And why does that affect your performance as a coach?
Yep.
I don't get that. Well, it has to be known. Why?
Yeah.
Why?
But the truth is that heterosexual guys are always going to want to fuck chicks.
That's just the nature of the beast.
I mean, think about maybe not your current job, but have you ever worked in a place that had supervisors that were women and younger than you, even if it's a year or two younger than you?
Well, the women part, as far as supervisors, I can't say that I've worked in a position where I've worked for a woman. Now, I did work for a mother-daughter company,
mm-hmm.
But there was no interest there.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna put this out there, and I'm gonna see if the chat room agrees with me or if it's just me being the normal perv that I am. But I specifically worked at one company where there were quite a few department heads that were women. And the longer that I worked there, when I first started working there, they were just department heads. You know what I mean? But as time went on, I wanted to bang every single one of them.
Okay.
There's something to that whole, the longer you're, and I guess maybe it's not only the supervisors, it's any work environment. When you're around chicks enough as a heterosexual guy, eventually a chick that maybe when you started there was a 4, somehow in your mind becomes a 7.
That's because you're around them, a good part of your day.
Yeah, but that's exactly it. That's exactly the point, though, is that human nature, and maybe it's just Chris nature. Maybe that's not human nature.
No, I think it's human nature. I think it's heterosexual male nature.
Yeah. But what it says to me is that, if you put a woman boss in there, eventually the guys are going to want to fuck them. They're just going to. Unless she is real. If you put Rosie O'Donnell as your boss, eventually somebody's going to want to bang her. Or Roseanne or whatever.
Right.
It's just the way it is. It's just a fact. Sorry. People don't have to agree, and that's fine. But, I'm stating from my experience, my personal experience, anytime I've had female bosses and really female coworkers as well, there was a good chance that I at least thought about fucking them at some point.
Sure.
Whether you move on that or not is another thing, but it does distract you from doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
It just does.
All right. Remove those barriers and the greater diversity in coaching will result, but it will come through the best people being hired, not a forced ascent for certain or selected coaches, as it should be. When you're out there finding a coach or even players, you're looking for the best players to benefit your team, not just to fulfill some quota.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about this before, about California wanting to pass legislation out there that, you got to have a woman on your board.
Right.
And you made the because you're the guy that makes the show, you made the comment that, you're in charge of sitting over there.
Right. Right.
And make no mistake, the barriers exist.
Do they?
You can't have a hot woman in the NBA, says one veteran NBA coach. Guys will be trying to fuck her every day.
See? I 1,000% agree with this.
I agree with it too. And whether you agree with it or not, just making that quote in today's environment, you're basically looking for a spot on the unemployment line.
Yeah, you are. But yeah. So in other words, you're looking to be unemployed because you spoke the truth.
Well, again, it's unsavory talk and it's sexist talk and it's, it goes against the mores of today's environment.
Of course. Agree.
How dare you speak the truth?
Yeah. How dare you say what you actually think?
Yeah. By and large, the NBA is an incredibly sexist environment, says the veteran NBA coach. It's funny that they don't mention who this is. I listen to players talk about women. I have a daughter, and it's sometimes disturbing. But it's nothing new. It hasn't gotten worse over the years. In our society, there are men uncomfortable working under women, and a handful of our players would have a problem with it.
Sure.
This is unacceptable workplace behavior. Companies thrive when they consider all job candidates and make all employees feel comfortable. That is clearly not the case with women in the NBA or the NFL or MLB or
hockey or anything.
Anything. Any male-dominated sport, it's a male-dominated sport. There's no room for women, sorry. Unless you're a groupie who's willing to suck their dick after the game.
Dude, I have I don't know what I'd call him a friend, but somebody that I still don't know as well as I used to, but he used to play hockey here in Cleveland. And, when we had a team here. And he used to come up to the metal show on Sundays. He's a metalhead. That's how I got to know this guy. And he would tell us stories about the hockey. And they used to, back then, this was, obviously years ago, but they were trying to integrate female like trainers and stuff in.
Okay.
Which is fine. They're getting them into, look at people's knees and medical and tape them up and all that stuff. And he told me that without question, every single time they brought in a new one of them, she would either become a pass around in the locker room that everybody would fuck, or the guys would just absolutely fucking be, pulling their towels off in front of her, trying to show her some cock, just fucking with her, just because it was a male dominated locker room.
Of course.
That's how it goes, and to be honest, you can't keep a team focused if you're going to fucking add distractions to it. And that's really forget man, woman for a minute. I'm going to go to Colin Kaepernick. Okay. I'm going to go a different route with this story.
So you're going to go with a gay player. Oh, no, I meant a social justice player. Sorry.
Social justice
player.
I
mistook who he was. Sorry.
The reason he's unemployed is not necessarily just because he's a bad player.
He's a distraction.
It's a distraction.
Yes.
And not worth his ability is not worth the distraction that he would cause.
Of course.
Not just because people don't want him because he kneeled down. It's because now he's become such a distraction that what he would add to a team is less than the distraction would take from the team.
Well, that's why Tim Tebow was having a problem.
Right, exactly.
Same thing.
Same exact thing. That's why a woman coach in the NBA would be the same problem as this guy is saying. Because the distraction of having a set of tits and a fucking sweaty box on the end of the bench is going to be more of a distraction than it's worth. Sorry, but that's the truth. It's just the way it is.
That's just the way it is.
Yep.
I'm not sure whether this coach is right about players, but the fact that he thinks it is troubling enough. He is in a position to hire someone. He won't hire a woman he deems attractive. That's sexist, plain and simple. Well, I get that. I really do.
But if it's going to make his team worse, then he's doing justice for the stockholders.
Yeah, it's just like, I know this is going to cause us a problem in the long run. And this goes back to just normal jobs, too.
Sure.
Like if you have say if you have an industrial shop, and it's all male dominated, and you get one woman in there, you know that it's gonna hamper production,
of course,
because of the distraction, as you put it. So exactly. and because it is a male dominated shop, and it's a distraction, you don't want to risk having a human resources issue on your hands if one guy steps out of line and says the wrong thing or makes some kind of a pass. Then you're opening yourself up for a possible lawsuit.
Yeah, and the worst and even more to it, even if it's not a lawsuit, what you're ultimately doing is you're pacifying the one over the many. You're no longer able to say, yeah, fucking adapt to it. This is the environment we work in. Adapt to it. You're not allowed to say that. Now it's no matter what environment you have as a business, if you hire a woman or a gay guy or something other than what you have in your environment, now you're supposed to adapt everything to pacify them.
Yeah. So you have to warn everybody, don't make a gay joke. Yeah. Don't do this. Don't do that. So everybody has to adapt to that one person.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. They should have to just grin and bear it.
Yeah.
Take it.
So a lot of employers, they'll try to figure out a way around it and go, well, the law says I need to have X amount of minorities on staff. Well, I got a Mexican, I got a black, I got a Chinese or Asian. I got this, but I don't have a woman, because if I had a woman in this environment, this could potentially cause me a problem.
Yeah, you basically got to take an expense and hire a woman and put her on outside sales. That's what you have to do.
Yeah, got to segregate her from the bunch.
I'll give you $30,000 a year. You go out and do whatever you do.
Yeah. So you just look at that as a potential liability rather than potentially benefiting your team.
You're exactly right.
Employees and potential employees should be evaluated on their ability to do the job, not their attractiveness. Though Hammond becoming a head coach would force some people to confront their backward views. You mean their natural inhibitions? That alone won't fix the discrimination against women in the NBA. That's a wider problem that should be addressed, irrespective of the individual.
So then you already have your own league. What do you want? You want to be integrated into the NBA on all levels? Fine. Prove your worth.
Yeah.
Prove your worth. Prove that you won't distract. Do what the other NBA coaches have to do. Prove yourself through the fucking system. Prove yourself in the fucking colleges. Prove yourself in the high school ranks as a coach. Prove that you can coach, and then maybe you get your shot. Right?
I would agree.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so again, it's not discrimination based on, I don't like women in this position. It's discrimination, if you want to call it that, based on it's a distraction for me.
Yeah.
And it's going to cause me an issue somewhere down the road here.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is.
Yep.